valley and mountain, river and plain, through wind and storm, rides Anne of the Airlanes.
En route to Africa by way of the Atlantic Clipper, Aunt Hattie, Bobby Baker, and Dr. Tyler land at Bermuda, where Tyler tells them he is making a short visit to a friend there. Bobby and Aunt Hattie step into a cafe just in time to miss seeing the Doc, head of the diamond smuggling ring, and his aide in crime, the scientist Hans. They leave as Bobby and Aunt Hattie return and are joined by Dr. Tyler, who once more leaves Bobby in doubt as to Tyler's honesty by referring to the interstate ship flown by Jack Baker. But the three depart on the Clipper just as a radio report is received that two ships have just headed east across the Atlantic. We know that Bobby and Aunt Hattie are safe for the moment, so let us join Pete, Kay, and Zeb in the Aircat.
Sure is lucky, Kay, that Jack kept that carrier wave of his on the air so that headquarters could pick up the conversation. Otherwise, we never would have known just when they were taking off.
I'll say we wouldn't. But why do you suppose they tried to land back there just before they left the coast, Pete?
I never figured that one out. You got any ideas about that, Zeb?
Yep, I reckon I have, youngster. If I remember correctly, the place where he was going to try to come to roost was Natal, which is quite a little seaport.
But that still doesn't mean a thing to me, Zeb.
But don't you recollect they was going to try and send Ann back to the States on one of them little tramp steamers, one without a radio so she couldn't send word about where she was?
I get it, Zeb. Morgan figured to land there at Natal, rush Ann to the seaport, put her on board a boat, and then beat it back to the ship. That way he'd know that the boat left with her.
Well, I can see that all right, Pete, but surely they couldn't take a chance on a boat being about ready to leave just at the time they took off.
Well, I got a hunch that Vic just radioed to that amateur in Natal to find out about a boat, just like he did about getting them supplies he wanted. You were so interested in keeping that set of yours on the high-pressure wave you talk about so much that you didn't listen to any of the other places on that dial.
I guess you're right about that, Zeb. Well, no matter what they tried to do, they failed. And that fog put a crimp in that. And I'll wager that Jack's not a bit sorry.
You contacted headquarters and told them about it, didn't you, Pete?
Oh, sure I did, Kay. But I don't know just who they'll tell about it. Aunt Hattie is somewhere out over the Atlantic with Bobby and that Dr. Tyler.
I know. You still think Dr. Tyler is the doc.
Sure, why not? Ever since Tyler left the sanitarium at Springfield, Vic Morgan's been trying to raise his own radio station. It's been as quiet as a clam with laryngitis. Doesn't that clinch it?
Not quite. I can see where he might not be the doc, and we got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Sure, that's fine. But the minute he leaves, this foreigner that works for him, that Hans, he leaves too. And D12, the operator at our headquarters, says that he booked passage on the Oceanic Airways flying boat that's left just a little ahead of the Clipper.
Sure, and this here D12 also said that there was an unidentified man from Springfield took a reservation on the same boat, which might be the doc. Leastwise, it was somebody the Secret Service boys never seen before.
Don't you get to talking now, Pete, and lose that transport. This is a mighty big ocean to have to search.
Well, don't worry about that, Kay. This radio takes care of that nicely. By using that directional beam receiver, I can keep them right in line just as long as Jack keeps that frequency on the air. I guess that Joe and Vic must be sleeping or something, because he's really taking a chance.
Well, you'd think with Ann aboard especially, those two gangsters would take turns sleeping. They think Jack's a new member, and, well, if I were them, I'd be sort of suspicious of him for a while.
Maybe they are taking turns, and this just happens to be Joe's turn to stay awake. You see, here's something I never told you before. When I sort of scouted over that there mountain back there at Cape St. Roque, just to see how Jack was making out.
You mean when those natives scared us half to death?
Yep, that was the day. Well, I got over there and found the whole place deserted, like I told you. Then after taking a look around and seeing that they'd not have to send for any gas on account of the tank was full there for the shack, well, I headed back along the trail that went to LaHaye, thinking that maybe I could get sight of them just to see if Ann was still with them. Funny thing was that only one set of tracks went that way. Joe's? Mm-hmm. I didn't think that Vic could trust him to go on anything important like that. Well, I reckon Vic thought it'd be a little mite dangerous, so Joe went. Well, sir, pretty soon I heard a commotion. There was a whole crowd coming along the trail, coming back from LaHaye. It was Joe. He'd got a bunch of fellas. He was up in front, walking with a fella that I'd never seen before. About that time, they decided to stop for a rest, and Joe and this fella went off to one side of the trail and was holding a kind of a compass. So I snuck up kind of close through the woods, and I pinned my ears onto what they was talking about. And I heard Joe say that if he, meaning this other feller, put the radio on such and such a wavelength, he could pick up the Aircat airplane and not
The
only...
Aircat? But how did Joe find out what our frequency is? Why didn't you tell me this before?
Now, doggone it, youngster, you might listen to the rest of this. Joe told him that he'd also be able to send messages to D12.
Send messages to D12? Well, Pete, that's the number of the operator in Washington. Joe must have been listening in while Jack's been talking to them sometime or another.
Sure, but why would he want this other chap to send messages to D12?
Well, you got me there, son, but I did hear him say that this feller had better not let Big Morgan get wind of him knowing this frequency or the whole thing would fall through.
Now, wait a minute, Zeb. Are you trying to get the idea over that this Joe Tolliver is playing in with Jack Baker?
I ain't a-trying to get no idea over, youngster. I'm just a-telling you what I hear.
Oh, but Zeb, why didn't you tell us all this before about Joe?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was coming back through the jungle back there just a-mulling it over in my head, trying to see where this Joe fit into the picture, and whether I better keep my fool head shut for a little while and see how he worked out, or whether to tell you when, zing, I run smack into you folks there in your airship surrounded with them natives.
Yeah, that was plenty ticklish, all right, Zeb. I thought any minute that one of those fellas was going to let fly one of those arrows and let it come whizzing right through the ship. They looked like they could drive one right through the middle at that.
Oh, it certainly was lucky for us that they were friendly and that we just mistaken their actions. You know, I'd like to stop at that landing field on our way back, if we do come back.
Well, Kay, I guess according to the way things is laid out, that when this smuggling ring is all rounded up, the boys are in jail, and maybe I find my claim over there in Africa, and maybe find George, too, well, you'll be all right, but I don't reckon I'll be along. That's why I'm telling you this. But don't use that landing field anymore.
Why not, Zeb? They made a swell place to land, had plenty of water and shelter. I guess we could buy food from those natives if we had to.
Yeah, that's where you're wrong, youngster. I sort of misled you about them natives. Them natives didn't have nothing to do with Chief Paxtell's crowd at all. Fact is, they're led by a chap called Abtak. Well, sir, this Abtak and his bunch have kind of queer habits. Maybe you've seen the results of some of them habits in museums. Little dried-up things that look like dolls, you know, and on the sign in front of them it said that they wasn't dolls at all, but just some enemies that had had bad luck. Well, fixing them up like that is just one of the bad habits that this Abtak has got.
Oh, but you said they were friendly. Zeb, we saw you walk right up to him, and, well, of course, we don't know what you said, but he called his men and they left. Surely they couldn't have been as savage as you say.
Yeah, I'll admit I said that, but I didn't want you two to get scared unless I couldn't parley the chief out of what he had in mind, which was something about 2 white sacrifices for some big feast they was going to have.
But, Zeb, how did you get the guy to beat it like that?
Well, I know it ain't allowed in the best circles, but I just sort of went up to old Abtak and hinted around in a nice sort of a way that if the 200 or 300 men which was following me happened along and found them...
200 or 300 men? Why, Zeb.
Yeah, I know. My reserve force was only limited by my own imagination. But I told him that my men might come swarming out of them woods and not understand that Abtak was a friend of mine. Abtak saw the pint immediate, and, as you know, he decamped in order, as they say.
But, Zeb, to make him believe that you had 200 or 300 men following you?
Well, I sort of salved my conscience by telling myself that I didn't actually say they was back there in the woods. I just said they might be. And, of course, they might have been, for all I know. Only it would have been a miracle if they had been.
It was more of a miracle that you got the old boy to swallow the story, Zeb.
Oh, not so much. Abtak looked at me for a minute like he thought I was lying, and I looked right back at him, just as though I wasn't, and, well, I was the best convincer.
Well, you can bet I won't set this Aircat down there in that field. Here I thought all the time that those fellows were just putting on a show.
Peter, you're still right behind Jack and Ann. Doesn't seem to me that the wave is coming in as strong as it did.
It has faded out a little. They might have put on a little more speed or gone up and started making use of that substratosphere flying. I'll give this old direction finder a bit of a twist. See if that does.
There. Hey, that whistle's louder there, if that's what you're after.
Yeah, that's it. There. Well, he has changed direction. but for the love of Mike.
What's the matter, Pete?
Well, the way he's going. Gets me what he's trying to do. Something wrong here.
Yeah? Which way do you think he turned, Pete?
Well, it seems like he turned sort of southeast. But there isn't anything that way at all. Our course should lie right straight east, or rather east by north. Instead of that, he's turned directly southeast.
You mean there ain't no land in that direction, son?
Not according to this chart. Here, see here. We should be going that way. Instead of that, we head down this way. We haven't enough gas to reach Abtak or anything else. Neither is Jack.
Do you suppose they have another uncharted island rigged up like the one near Florida?
No, youngsters, here. Here's the answer right here.
Huh?
If we're heading like you say we are, that would bring us up right here, see?
Uh-huh.
You should have turned this chart a little more. See there? Tristan to Cuna.
Oh, yeah. But what on earth would they be wanting in that section of the Atlantic?
Looks to me like they're flying a mighty neat course if they want to keep out of the road of steamers and flying boats. Only thing is, this Tristan is just a little bunch of islands. They ain't got any permanent habitation.
Can you land on them?
Sure, you can land on them. The only thing is, they ain't got no grocery store just around the corner, if you get what I mean.
But Jack just took on a load of supplies.
Yeah, sure, Jack did. But as I remember it, when I checked our stuff back in St. Roque, we had about 2 days' grub. And flying the way we are, following Jack and Ann this way, we're going to be out of hollering distance of the chuck wagon for considerable more than that.
And then I guess we'll have to turn back. It's no use going on. In case anything should happen, we'd starve.
Listen, son. Remember them sealed orders we broke open? They said stay within 100 miles of Baker at all costs. Now, we may have to tighten up our belts a little, and Kay here will have to go on a movie star diet. But we're shoving right on. That's one of the costs.
On and on over the Atlantic rushed the two planes. Will they obtain food for the unlooked-for distance? And what of fuel? Who can say what will be the real cost called for in the sealed orders? The thrills of an uncharted airlane will recall us to the next episode of Anne of the Airlanes.